Hello, and thank you for watching this regional forecast for the Corn Belt. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. We'll start with a look at the satellite picture here with lightning overlaid on this Tuesday morning. We've got a couple players here across the lower 48. The most obvious one is our hurricane, well now tropical storm, Isaias, on the east coast here, making its way up through New England as we head through the day today with a tornado risk in that area. Quiet across the Corn Belt, but we do have some showers and storms across the high plains. That'll be where they'll flare back up this afternoon and evening as well as we begin to transition patterns here across the central U.S. A look at the radar. Again, here's our hurricane off to the east. Scattered showers and storms ongoing across the high plains early this morning, and then high pressure across the midsection of the country, keeping things on the quiet side. Quiet and cool. As we take a look at temperatures across the lower 48 again on this Tuesday morning, 40s and 50s making their way down across portions of the Great Lakes and the central U.S. down to the mid-Mississippi Valley, getting a break from the heat and humidity there. But we are already starting to return the warm and moist air across the high plains, again returning that threat for some thunderstorms across the high plains as we head through the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, as we look at the jet stream, we can kind of diagnose the pattern here. We've got a big trough here across the Great Lakes. That's what's helping to kind of drive this cooler air southward across the midsection of the country. That's also what's going to help to guide our hurricane off to the north and to the east rather quickly over the next 24 to 48 hours. We've got our Four Corners Ridge here across the southwest with little disturbances riding up and over the top of that. That's what's leading to the thunderstorm threat across the high plains. And then finally, we've got this bigger wave back across the Pacific and western Canada. This is slowly going to be migrating off to the east and bringing a bit of a pattern change here across the midsection of the country. So that's what we've got right now. As we take a look at the hazards map from the National Weather Service, our heat advisories, heat-related advisories are off across portions of the western U.S. We've got our tropical advisories here across the east coast, and then again, quiet across the Corn Belt as far as immediate advisories go. Now, we do have that risk for some strong storms across the high plains, parts of eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and western Kansas this afternoon, with a marginal risk extending into the Dakotas. And then tomorrow, a slight risk across portions of Wyoming, Colorado, and western Nebraska once again. Again, the organized thunderstorm threat today and tomorrow going to be confined to the central and high plains here. Again, relatively quiet across the central and eastern portions of the Corn Belt. And again, a lot of that because cooler air spilling into the region, but also drier air. As we take a look at dew points, again, we've got cool, dry air spilling in from Canada across the Great Lakes into the central and eastern Corn Belt. So just an environment that's not conducive to showers and storms like we've seen over the last month and a half. But you can kind of see the return flow here across the Gulf into the central high plains. That's where we will have enough moisture here to tap into that little, disturbances riding up and over the top of that ridge there to bring us the thunderstorm threat across the high plains. But over the next 48 hours, high pressure, cool, dry air across the Great Lakes, across the mid-Mississippi Valley, eastward into the eastern Corn Belt. Now we can look at our thunderstorm index here, our internal thunderstorm index that kind of rates the volatility of our environment here, how supportive it is of stronger thunderstorms. And again, as we look at this today, this afternoon and evening, our best ingredients across the Corn Belt, across the high plains here, tapping into the flow up and over the top of our western U.S. ridge, our Four Corners Ridge. And then as we take a look at the forecast for tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, kind of peaking here again across the high plains into portions of the Dakotas. So we'll look at the high-resolution NAM model, taking this through the next 60 hours. This will get us into Thursday. We'll head through the afternoon and evening hours today, again watching for that thunderstorm activity to flare up across the high plains, anywhere from the Dakotas southward into northeastern Colorado. We'll also watch our hurricane traveling up the east coast and exiting New England as we get into the overnight. Let's take it into Wednesday afternoon and evening. We still keep that thunderstorm risk across the central plains. We've got a little disturbance across parts of the Dakotas into Minnesota that could flare up some scattered showers, but as you saw on our thunderstorm index here, anywhere from Colorado northeastward into portions of southwest Minnesota, look for the chance for scattered showers and storms. Meanwhile, the Storm Prediction Center does have this area highlighted with that slight risk, so a slightly higher risk. Maybe some of these storms produce some large hail. So as we look at total precipitation between now and Thursday, midday, again, dry across the central Corn Belt into the eastern Corn Belt, a big dry window here where it's going to be just kind of sunny, cool, quiet as we head through the rest of the work week. And then just as you head back toward the north and to the west, scattered, disorganized thunderstorm activity, severe at times in corridors, but not everyone going to get a drink here as we talk about the next 60 hours of precipitation. Now, as I go back to our thunderstorm index, remember we're looking at the environment here, our ingredients for thunderstorms and severe thunderstorms. I'm going to hit play, and you're going to see a transition happen here across the Corn Belt. As we get into the weekend and early next week, we're really starting to shift this environment back across the midsection of the country, across parts of the Dakotas into the central parts of the Corn Belt here in the Midwest. Which, again, the reason for that, let's go ahead and jump back to the jet stream. Remember, we diagnosed what we've got right now, this big trough across the Great Lakes. We've got our Four Corners Ridge off to the southwest, and then we've got this disturbance, this big trough across the Pacific, pumping or shifting into western Canada. Let's take the drawings off and see where we head over the next 4 to 5 days. Again, watching that trough across Canada slowly pushing off to the east. Also watching our trough here across the Great Lakes beginning to dissipate and lift off to the north and to the east as well. Such that by the time we get into the end of the week, into the weekend, and then into early next week, around the August 8th through the 12th time frame, we're setting a pattern back up that features northwest flow across the Dakotas into the central Corn Belt into the Great Lakes, and that would once again be a supportive environment for thunderstorms across this corridor. So this is what I'll be watching as we head into the weekend and early next week, a return to thunderstorm activity from the Dakotas into parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, maybe even parts of Indiana and Ohio at times, perhaps looking for the potential for several MCS or repeated rounds of thunderstorms across certain areas. So there is a heavy rain risk in there, but be one that we'll have to kind of diagnose as we get a little bit closer to that actual time frame. So we're looking at precipitable water, the moisture content within the atmosphere. I've really kind of hit this pretty hard already, but cool, dry air spilling in across the Great Lakes into the central and eastern Corn Belt with a little sliver of return flow here across the high plains. So we'll keep the thunderstorm threat well off to the west and to the north over the next 48 hours or so. We'll take the drawings off and head into the end of the week. Here's Thursday, getting into Friday, and now Saturday. And what you're seeing is we're now lifting a warm front across the region, where once again we'll return a very hot and muggy environment to the midsection of the country, shifting the jet stream a bit such that we've got northwest flow coming over the top of this warm and unstable environment, and that's once again going to set the stage for repeated rounds of storms from the Dakotas into parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley. So we'll take all of that and put it together with our precipitation forecast from the European model. We'll bring it back and go through the next couple of days, though we've covered it well. Here's our hurricane lifting off to the north and to the west. Watch for thunderstorms flaring up here across the high plains as we head through the afternoon today and tomorrow. Tomorrow's thunderstorm risk may extend into parts of Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas as well. As we get into Thursday afternoon and evening, watching for maybe some scattered showers across parts of the high plains into Minnesota and Iowa, but the real heavier rain threat holds off until we get into Friday and then especially Saturday. It looks like Friday afternoon, and this has been a fairly consistent signal, one that I'm starting to trust more and more each day as we get a bit closer, even though it is still 3 to 4 days out, but it really looks like Friday evening we want to develop an MCS, a cluster of thunderstorms across the Dakotas, and then dive that south and east across the Great Lakes here, potentially flaring up additional thunderstorms along that warm front, which should be kind of stretched across this region. So it kind of looks like the pattern flips Friday night into Saturday. That's when I think we'll really see a shift to a much more stormy pattern here from the Dakotas into parts of the eastern Corn Belt. This is now Saturday night, getting into Sunday morning, seeing additional thunderstorms. Here's maybe another big MCS coming from the Dakotas into parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is the time that I'm really looking for a return to thunderstorm activity across the Dakotas into the mid-Mississippi Valley. We can kind of break that down here. Total precipitation from the European ensemble, so this is smoothed out. Not everybody in this corridor here is going to get an even amount of precipitation here, but as we talk about Tuesday through Friday, the rest of this work week, looking for scattered light thunderstorm activity across the central high plains, and then as we shift into the weekend, looking at a much more robust threat for some organized thunderstorm activity from the Dakotas southeastward into parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. That again will be crucial as we look at the last 7 days of precipitation. Especially parts of Iowa right here have really seen a drying trend, but with dry conditions over the last week from the Dakotas into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, northern Illinois, it would be good by the time we get to the weekend to bring some precipitation back into this region, but really trying to get some of this to work its way into the state of Iowa as we head into the last part of summer. So not only will a stormy pattern be resuming across the Dakotas into the mid-Mississippi Valley, we're looking at the forecast probability of high temperatures above 90 degrees as we get started here. Much of the 90-degree activity held well to the south from the desert southwest into the southern U.S., the southeast. But as we start to transition later into the week, into the weekend, we're getting into Saturday now, getting into Sunday and Monday of next week. We should once again see those 90s stretching into parts of the high plains and the eastern Corn Belt. If you're curious about Tropical Storm Isaias, at this point making its way up the mid-Atlantic into the New England area, I'll be talking more about that in our Northeast regional forecast. But let's just finish with a look at high temperatures over the next 5 days. 60s and 70s across the Corn Belt today and tomorrow. We'll start a warming trend later in the week. 80s becoming more numerous Thursday and Friday, with temperatures returning to seasonally appropriate levels, if not a little warmer than average by the time we get to the weekend.